Randy, we've got a problem.
What? They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda like I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are back at it again. Another live production of Real News. It is 10:04 Eastern, 9:04 Central on this Monday, November 23rd. We're back at it with some live programming here, and I'm already getting calls. Look, that's how the day is going because we're out here popping off doing big news stuff. My name is Mr. Henry, David Sean Thompson, Zig with us again. The trifecta is back at work. We're making moves out here, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. Hey, listen, let's break this down for a second. Let's get a little bit more calm. Let's get a little bit more serious here. We appreciate you. You in particular watching on the other side of this camera. I'm pointing at you right now. I appreciate you for joining us. I don't want to be too sappy here, but you know what we really appreciate? The shares, the likes, the hearts, all the love. And in particular, if you want to help us grow this community, if you want to help us, do what we do with more people, bring more people into the fold, especially right now when stuff's getting a little weird out there. Tell your friends about us, man. Share this stuff around. Do some, share some stuff with little messages to your people. Say, hey, I got this community I'm a part of. They do cool things over here. We do cool things together. We're kind of living life on this digital space in this new digital day and age where COVID's shutting everything down. Come join the party. We'd love to have you. The more, the merrier. That's what we do at Real News. We make real friends and we grow in life with each other. Let's go to our boy, David Sean Thompson right now. See how he's been. See what's up in East Tennessee. Buddy, how you doing this morning, man? Everything good?
Everything's fantastic, man. Just had a great week last week. Sorry that we've been so busy. I mean, y'all been carrying the torch. I've been off and about and doing things, so I appreciate y'all. But glad to be back on Real News, Season 2.
Season 2.
We're doing it big. I'm having a great time. Glad to be here.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. And our boy Zig up in PA way. That stands for Pennsylvania way. Zig, buddy, how you doing up there? Everything good on your end?
Doing all right, man. We just added an additional 8 more followers and likes to the Real News page. We are on a quest to 10,000. We are already at 2,500 likes, 3,000 followers. We are on a full-blown path to success to make Real News even more real with your help. So if you get a chance, just send it to your friends in a message. Hey, I think you might like this, or hey, I think you're frustrated with the current news. Come support my friends. Be a part of the only interactive news, the only grassroots-based broadcast out there that runs daily.
Speaking of the only interactive grassroots-based thing that runs daily out there, let's see. Eric said in Facebook, to Zig's point, he said, good morning from Nashville. Missed you guys last week. Hope all went well in Georgia, making things happen. That's right. We did miss y'all last week. Seriously.
Hey, Grant, we have some breaking news.
What's that?
They're telling me right now in my ear that it's your birthday.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's right.
Want to wish you happy birthday. We always tell everybody celebrate the little things, the big things. Do it here on Real News. Grant is another year older. That's right. Wiser, smarter, maybe. And definitely like a 1 year handsomer. Look at this guy. Let me just look. Wait, he's over there. Look at this guy, you know? Anyway, happy birthday, Grant.
Thanks,
Throw some stuff in the chat for Grant's birthday. Woo! Special birthday edition.
To David's point, it is true. Grant does look 1 year more handsome. I challenge you to go back to Real News from about 2 or 3 years ago.
True.
Okay, he looks like he's about 45. Now he looks like he's 22. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's jump into the show. I appreciate y'all, by the way. Here's what we got lined up for today. Real news, fake news. Not extremely hard this morning, but here we go. You tell me if the following headline is real or fake. You'll see this at the bottom of your Facebook panel right there. You click on real news or you click on fake news. And then towards the end of the show, maybe the middle of the show, depending on how we run this today, we're going to reveal what the correct answer is. Is this headline a real headline or a fake headline? Quote, Biden won, but the election is still not over. Here are the key dates to watch. One more time, is that a real headline or a fake headline? Quote, Biden won, but the election is still not over. Here are the key dates to watch. Tell me if that's a real or a fake headline below. And as we enter the story for today, you're going to see the title of this program is there a path forward, a tale of two options? And that second part in particular, tale of two options, is really going to be drawn out. And it's not just a Democrat-Republican tale of two options. It's a Republican-Republican tale of two options. It's a very strange thing to say. But I said this same thing last week when it was just Zig and I on the program, or is it me and Zig? I think it's me and Zig. We'll figure out the grammar on that later on. I said this last week, and I'm going to stick to it one more time today. I wish I had this pulled up because it would actually prove the point, but I saw this thing floating around here. It was just a quick little image that somebody put out there. And it was called the America Party, or the American Party, or Party America, something about America and Party. And it had a big picture of a line, and at the bottom it had MAGA. And I think in some sense people were just joking, or maybe in another sense people were just throwing this idea out there as something to say, hey, we're just supporting the Make America Great Again slogan, i.e. we're supporting President Trump. Still the sitting president, whether you like that or not. That's the way that it is. But it caused me to think a little bit, okay, man, so are we seeing a fracturing in the Republican Party? Now, hold on. Before anyone gets too ridiculous here, I get that. It's just a little bit of hyperbole that I'm playing out right now to just tease the question of what we're about to go through this morning. Are we seeing a fracturing from, say, a populist fringe off from the more conservative base? And this is not necessarily the neocons fighting against whatever Trump was or whatever the wave was. I think importantly, people have told me this all the time. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine, Eric Wider, just a couple weeks back, and talking about how Trump has changed the party and what Trump has done here. And importantly, he stopped me and said, hang on. I love what you just went on. But he said, understand, Trump didn't do it. Trump just rode that wave that the party was already doing.
True. Here.
Right?
I say the same.
Yeah. If it wasn't going to be Trump, it was going to be somebody else. Trump was just the person that figured out how to pitch the rhetoric at the correct time. And I think that's vitally important to recognize.
What is it that you mean by populist?
See, that's interesting, man.
Just for philosophical clarity, I hear people throw this term, he's a populist. He must be a demagogue. He must be some kind of satanic cult figure. And I don't know what it means. People refuse to provide clear definition, Grant.
I think honestly, it means coming up with policies that aren't backed by career politicians and corporations, right? I mean, basically, like, if you want to get like a real definition, it means it didn't come out of a think tank. Maybe. Yeah, and it's like maybe, but I don't know. I think it just kind of means like non-mainstream, right? Like if it was something the party wasn't into 10 years ago, then it's got to be popular.
To kind of stir them up or to get them worked up. Yeah, sure, then that might be true. But that's been true. Presidents have been appealing directly to the people, since the advent of radio. It might now be the case that Republicans have finally figured out how to utilize and maximize technology, and therefore they're getting slandered and bashed for finally getting on the train that Democrats have been on since at least FDR with this fireside chat, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, Zig. In general, the term populism is just about that. Either politicians or ordinary people or leaders in any particular industry that will appeal, say, directly to ordinary people who feel that their concerns have been disregarded by more established groups, right? Or elitist groups like Shine's talking about. And what I'm kind of getting to this morning is this idea of whether it's populism on the left or on the right. I don't think it necessarily matters how you term that. What I'm talking about here is that we're starting to see a fracturing away from Sidney Powell, away from Rudy Giuliani. We're starting to see a fracturing from the mainstream Republican Party away from Trump himself or itself, whatever that's become. And I'm starting to wonder how long that's going to go along. And Shine, let me know here. I don't know if the video's been cut off from Facebook, if we said something we shouldn't have or something. I'm going to keep rolling like we normally,
we're reconnected, but the video we were on is a different. People will find us, so just keep going.
All right. Sounds good, man. Hey, look, so as we're going into this, obviously what I'm getting into here And Sean, if you know you got 50 things going on in the background here, but at some point, if you could pull up that first video here, it's the first thing under the show notes section, national story section, it says, once upon a time, we all had concerns about the integrity of our elections. And one thing, if you could jump, Sean, all those things are time coded there, all those little YouTube links. The one that starts at 5 minutes there, if you could jump to that one. Now, I want to start with this John Oliver clip this morning, and we're going to use this video to set up a lot of what's currently going on with this ongoing issue of, is there a path forward, a tale of two options? We talked about this idea of populism, and I'm wondering if we're seeing a fracturing in the Republican Party, and give it another 3 to 4 years, if we're going to see a similar fracturing in the Democrat Party. Now, oddly enough, Sidney Powell, in an interview with Newsmax last night, gave us one of the reasons why she at least thinks there's not a fracturing in the Democrat Party right now. And I kid you not, we're going to get to this in a minute, but I don't like hiding the ball or burying the lead. Sidney Powell last night said that the same Dominion software was used to throw the election away from Bernie Sanders to Hillary Clinton in 2016, and that they actually paid off Bernie Sanders to keep quiet about this. Now, this is not a brand new allegation. The validity of that allegation has always been suspect. They've always searched for some type of actual evidence they could cite more than just hearsay. I mean, some people might find it odd that Bernie Sanders seemingly acquired several new homes after the election, but whatever. You got your coffers filled. Maybe he sold a book that I don't know about. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But Sidney Powell came out last night and said, listen, man, this Dominion software has much more going on behind the scenes than you might think. Sidney Powell's claim, I kid you not now, is that Governor Kemp down in Georgia is in on it as well, that he was paid off to fix this election in Georgia. This is the way this stuff is rolling out. But I want to pull back just a little bit now, because Republicans apparently are the ones that are looking outrageous in all these claims. Or at least now Sidney Powell is the one that's looking outrageous in all the claims, because the Trump legal team has separated themselves from Sidney Powell. And she's done the same as well. Again, I want to pull back. Sean, let me know when you got that John Oliver clip pulled up here. Go ahead and start from minute 5 there, and we'll just casually work our way through this. Again, keep in mind, this is John Oliver in May of 2019. Go ahead and start from minute 5 there.
Now, one result of that mess was that America became understandably nervous about punch card ballots. And in 2002, Congress passed the Help America Vote Act, offering states $3.9 billion to help administer federal elections and buy new voting equipment, which sounds great. But the then chair of the Election Assistance Commission, which distributed funding for the new machines, realized that there was a problem immediately.
I was forced to send $2.3 billion to the 50 states to buy equipment, even though the equipment was not ready to be bought.
So why'd you do it?
We had to do it. We begged Congress, let us do the research before we send the money, and Congress said no.
So the politicians knew these machines wouldn't work.
The politicians don't care. Washington believes that the machines can't be that bad because, after all, it produced them. So if they won the race, how bad can the machine be?
The machine can't be bad because it produced me. That is some faulty logic right there. It's like saying reverse cowgirl is the best sex position because it gave us...
Or at least just pause it. We can listen to John Oliver's jokes if you want to. That's fine. I just don't.
Let's skip that.
Yes, good. Okay, thank you. Because I don't like that style of it's not even laughter. It's just applause half the time. Yes, I agree. It's not necessarily funny, but sometimes it is funny, and sometimes they just sort of lull you to sleep with, like, comedy is not argumentation necessarily. Satire can be, but what he's doing is not necessarily satire. He makes a random joke about Abraham Lincoln that's completely disconnected from the point that was just made before. That is just pure comedy. It's not satire. It's not meant to prove a point. Nevertheless, it's neither here nor there. I just want to draw attention one more time to the idea that in 2019, John Oliver, arguably, tell me if I'm wrong here, Shiner Zig, John Oliver, one of the more left-leaning individuals out there. I mean, I guess you have your Bill Maher and you have your Trevor Noah at the Daily Wires, and Samantha Bee might be the worst offender. But as far as pure, outright, abject bias goes, John Oliver is one of the more heavy offenders. Okay, but in 2019, apparently he had a problem with what the election integrity could be, and you just heard a clip there saying, "Hey, they had $3 billion set aside in Congress to help out." To bring some of these other states up to speed with where their voting machines were lagging behind. Again, understand the point that I'm trying to play out here is that at some point, Somebody in this nation needs to remain consistent as to what we're talking about when it comes to the issue of voter integrity, of the election integrity. In 2019, just in May of 2019, we're talking like a year to a year and a half ago, Democrats had a major problem with this. Now, all of a sudden, Republicans have a major problem with this. Is there a possibility for an overlap, or can we at least at some point understand that, hey, I think what I'm trying to tell my Democrat friends right now is that Republicans, if they don't feel like they've been cheated directly out of this 2020 election, they feel like they've been cheated out of the process behind it. They never had a chance to let Trump be president. They never had a chance to let Trump be president. If they weren't constantly hitting with some Mueller investigation, it was whatever going on with Ukraine. They actually did impeach the guy. For 4 solid years, Democrats were attempting to relitigate the election. Before the election even happened, we had a phony, completely fabricated, that we now know to be completely fabricated, Steele dossier that was shoved through the FISA court, circumventing the Fourth Amendment entirely to start a 2-year-long investigation into campaign people in the Trump campaign before he was even elected. Not a single criminal charge came out of that for 2 different people, Page and Papadopoulos. No actual criminal charges came out of that until they lied to the FBI after the fact. So they started before the election happened. They carried it through his presidency. This is the sensation that Republicans are dealing with. And so if they don't feel like they were cheated out of the actual election, they felt like they were cheated out of having a president for 4 years, not just a victory lap. And so I go one more time. Sean, if you want to kick forward to, let's go to 758. Go to Mark 758. This is another decent one. There's all kinds of evidence that John Oliver, and to his credit, has a fairly decent research team. Now, an obviously biased research team, but the type of evidence the guy puts together, I mean, it's not bad. Watch his stuff on civil asset forfeiture. It's a pretty decent presentation, okay? But Shine, go to 758 and see what he's talking about here. This is where he talks about the threat of someone physically hacking these machines.
Accident. There is also the threat of someone gaining control of them for their own ends, because voting machines are technically computers, and computers, of course, are hackable. And it can be far easier to control a machine than you might expect, as this hacker demonstrates on a model currently used in at least 18 states.
All they have to do, this bad actor, would be to open up this machine by pressing this button right here. When it's off, removing the card reader, removing this, you don't need any tools to do this. Unplugging this, again, you don't need any tools to do this. Turning it on, all you have to do is pick this lock here with a ballpoint pen. Open this up, press the red button, and we're gonna let it boot up here. Just click cancel and OK. And now I have full admin access, under 2 minutes.
Holy shit! That should have been a lot more difficult. You want hacking into a voting machine?
Pause it right there, Sean.
Then why did they just put it on national television, too? I mean, they just, like, instruct it. See, sometimes, like, I wonder about people like this. If it's like, oh, we're complaining about it, or if that's just giving you cover so you can just, like, teach someone with 105 IQ how to hack a voting machine. You know, I mean, that was not complicated. And then they just gave everyone step-by-step instructions.
Right. That was not complicated at all. And obviously, Shine, go to minute 10:34, 10 minutes and 34 seconds.
It's like it's not complicated, but no one would have known it was not that complicated unless you put it on national television. We just would have assumed it's a whole lot harder than that. Then somebody sitting at home going, oh, man, I could throw an election if I wanted to. We just got to have a few hundred people.
Right? That's exactly what's going on. And you saw his face reaction afterwards. Like, I can't believe it's this easy to mess around with it.
Yeah, but could he really not believe it?
I know, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like they used... I feel like that's just... I don't know. It felt a little faux to me. Like, oh, I can't believe it. It's so easy. I can't believe it at all. Oh, my goodness.
And in some of these claims that John Oliver is making here, again, understand, keep in the back of your mind, the context here, the setting that we're within is May of 2019. And the part of why I'm trying to, use at least the first half or quarter of this program this morning to prove this point is just to ask the simple question. These are either problems or they're not problems. They cannot have been problems in 2019 and cease to be problems just a mere, 14 months later. They're either problems or they're not problems. They're either problems for Democrats or they're not problems for Democrats. Okay, this sense of just outright, utter, unadulterated hypocrisy is too much for people to palate. It's not palatable anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think the American people and Republicans in particular would look back at something like this and think, all right, man, this is beyond absurd. What we're asking for now, and Sean, let me do this, Sean. Go to, just to prove this point because we're running out of time here. There's another clip in here where, Sean, we just showed how easy it is to hack some of those machines. And there's another clip where they show that this professor from Washington State University or whatever he is, he goes around to voting machines all throughout the nation and shows how you can just randomly walk into a polling location and see all kinds of voting machines just lined up against the wall. No security, nobody watching them, nobody doing anything. He actually does this every single voting year and takes pictures of them. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of voting machines that he's just beside. So to Shine's point, if you wouldn't have put it out there and how easy these things are to hack, and then at the same time, if you wouldn't have put out there how easy it is to find these things just lining the walls and voting locations, then what are you doing? But Sean, go to minute 15, 2 seconds. Minute 50, or just minute 15. This is where I want to end this whole John Oliver presentation. And we have all this stuff time-stamped out in the show notes if you want to check it out yourself. I'm going to get to some of these comments. There's great comments going on Facebook and YouTube right now as well. I want to get to those in just after this last clip here. But minute 15 through about minute 18 is really what I want to use to prove the entire point. Because what we're about to play right now is essentially, minus a few caveated points, this 2 to 3 minute clip right now is essentially the Republican pitch of current. Go ahead and play for minute 15 there, man.
Now, the good news is there is actually a consensus on what we should do here. Specifically, that after each election, we do what's called a risk-limiting audit. That's where we take a small percentage of the paper ballots at random and make sure that they match what the machines recorded. It's pretty simple. Unfortunately, most places don't currently do them, and some actually can't because they use the machines that we mentioned earlier, where you vote directly on the machine and there is no paper trail at all. They are called direct recording electronic voting machines, or DREs, and they are very bad. If something goes wrong with one of them, you would basically never know because you can't audit the results, and things have gone wrong. In one local New Jersey election, a husband and wife were both running for seats on their county's Democratic committee. The DRE machines said that they lost, but they were in the unusual position of actually knowing that that was a mistake.
I knew 33 of the people that voted for us, and we lost 33-10. And I knew that that wasn't the case.
The results had been switched with those of their opponents.
We started calling people that we thought we knew voted for us.
You can't make this up.
It was just in this district of this township, and we know everybody in this district.
It's true. That woman literally went around and got signed affidavits from people saying that they had voted for her, which means one of two things. Either the machines switched the votes, or people will sign anything to avoid a face-to-face confrontation. Oh, hi, Cynthia.
Don't add a joke to it. I thought signed affidavits were trying to disrupt democracy. I really did. That's what I thought. I mean, but I've been watching CNN nonstop for the past 82 hours.
And I'm telling you, when he comes out and starts, and the rest of this clip isn't necessarily important, he just goes on to further prove the idea that, hey, this is why we need further accountability. We need to do automatic audits. But the idea, though, that the solution could be something like a risk-limiting audit, a mandatory risk-limiting audit. And again, I know we just spent basically the first half of the program on this, but I just needed to set the stage for what we're about to go into, because what we're about to go into, you are going to hear over the next several days, and especially over this next solid week here, how absurd and outrageous some of these claims are. And even the gall and the audacity of a Sidney Powell or somebody in the Republican Party to ask for such a thing. I just want to set the stage that if you're talking to your Democrat friends, or if you have some family members or something, there is an easy way to ease that tension. That's what I'm hoping for everybody right now, because easing the tension, as difficult of a process as that is, especially right now, I know, I get it. Everybody feels like we're in the midst of a war, and this is a necessary win of a battle. I do not disagree with that. That is to say, I understand. What I'm advocating for, however, though, is an aspect of genuine persuasion in a classical philosophical sense of what rhetoric is. It's the idea to persuade your fellow man that you are correct. Use some of this information. Just 1 second. Zig, use some of this information of what John Oliver presented just a year ago to say, listen, I know it sounds outrageous now, but there was once a time when we were all on the same page that there might be aspects of voter integrity. Just let the process play out. We need to have a consensus of trust in this outcome for the peaceful transition of power to maintain. Go ahead, though, Zig.
The real source of election fraud people point to has the individual machines or somebody like Donald Trump. The real source of fraud is the media involvement in politics in general. They have perverse incentives to make everything sound worse than what it is, to take sound bites out of what somebody said, blow that up to epic proportions, and then you have people casting ballots on the basis of the soundbite they heard on CNN.
Yeah.
You know, that's, to me, that's where the real fraud is. What we need to prevent that kind of fraud isn't a new voting machine. What we need is more folks doing the kinds of things that we're doing in terms of grassroots podcasts, grassroots blogging, grassroots whatever, and more people thinking and being more thoughtful. But the media that we have on TV proactively discourages thought, stops people from being thoughtful with some kind of slick presentation, and then riles people up. And that's anti-Republican. People talk about interference in democracy. We have interference in a republic, and it's being more democratic and appealing to people's passions in a way that the founders would have never wanted.
And to be fair, there are people on, I don't know, the Trump side, Zig, who totally agree with you and say that the narrative from the media leading up to the election, or the coverage, however you want to put it, the way people do news, had an adverse effect on our voting process. And I think even Jack Dorsey admitted that the other day to a congressional committee, saying that the limiting of the, not that this is in the category of what you're saying, but the limiting of certain speech about a certain story was probably a bad idea. People deciding arbitrarily what are the things that can be reported and what are the things that can't is something that is hurting or negative to our republic. Because, you know, I like the idea of the hundreds of, or, you know, tens of millions of people being like a neural network, and that being the best brain to pursue the truth, as opposed to a centralized network that decides what electrical signals can get to what other parts of the body politic. But anyway, Mr. Henry, roll on.
Yeah, and Sean, as we're going through some of these Facebook comments here, I want to be able to pull the audience in. That next clip there, it's a Twitter link. It says an update on our reporting on Sidney Powell's voter fraud investigation. This is coming from Tucker Carlson. It's under that subheading there. It says the saga continues. Pull that video up here. Andrew said in Facebook a minute ago, he said, there are a few options legally under the 12th Amendment, and Georgia and Pennsylvania has started path in state legislation. He said Bernie Sanders was paid off in the DNC primary. We talked about this a while ago, before that whole, John Oliver thing we just went on, saying Bernie Sanders was paid off in the DNC primary when he got cheated out, and the DNC also changed their rules to get Hillary in. Now, if you don't know what Andrew's talking about, I mean, I can go try and find the clips from the previous, Real News show, but we actually interviewed, by we, I mean Sean and myself, on the AM/FM side 2 years ago now, buddy. How was it? There's 3 years ago almost.
It was in 2017.
17? That's right. Yeah. We interviewed both attorneys from that lawsuit that were representing Bernie Sanders supporters. Okay. And it was Bernie Sanders supporters that were suing the DNC. You actually find this judge's opinion. And the attorney told us on that interview saying, like, look, the judge straight up told us, yes, Bernie Sanders, you did have the primary stolen from you. But what do you want me to do about it? I can't do it. I can't do anything to help you here. You don't have any standing in my court. It's a private entity. The DNC is not a federally controlled operation. It's not a governmental entity. I can't do anything to help you here any more than I could if some private corporation violated your rights. Well, go figure it out with that private corporation, man. I don't. What do you want me to do? I agree with you. The election was stolen from Bernie Sanders. I can't help you, though. If you want help, you have to go figure that out on your own panel. So I think what Andrew is setting up here is the idea that some type of elections could be influenced beyond just merely in the way that people think, messing with people's psychology. The idea that you could influence an election past that is not an outrageous claim in and of itself anyways. Matt just said on Facebook, they're talking about a little bit in Facebook about these shutdowns coming up, and I do have stories in that here in just a little bit, Shine. The Knoxville shutdown.
We're having Thanksgiving in my house. I'll tell you that right now. I'll tell you that right now. We're gonna have Thanksgiving. We're gonna have turkey. We're gonna have all that stuff.
Just a
can't tell me not have Thanksgiving. Nuh-uh.
A quick TLDR. I'll get to this towards the end of the show here, obviously, but in Knoxville, yes, the Board of Health is apparently set to meet tonight, and everyone is anticipating some major shutdowns again. I think 25% capacity for restaurants, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. curfew, something like this. So that's the way that Knoxville's going. That's a little bit of what Kelly and Eric are going back and forth on Facebook here. Let's see. Matt made some comments about that as well. All right. So back to the story at hand here, right? Tucker Carlson came out last week, and when we're talking about this lady named Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell is the one that's claiming that there's massive voter fraud going on. Up until this point, everyone outside of Sidney Powell has been making claims of just a single affidavit here and there, or a couple hundred affidavits here or there, or something to that effect, but not really the size of numbers that you would need, say 10, 20, 30, 100,000 individuals, more, tens of millions of individuals. Sidney Powell has come out and made the claim that almost 6 million to 8 million more people voted for Trump than were cast. That is a heavy claim, to say the absolute least.
Let me just step in real quick and point out what I just said. Previously, I was saying there is a perverse incentive for people to make ridiculous claims because they can get TV attention. This illustrates exactly what I was pointing out. She now has a perverse incentive to try and get her little 15 minutes of fame or whatever, so she can write a book, Stolen, How Trump Lost, and make a bunch of money off of the perversity of our institutions that, instead of circulating bad information, ought to be auditing them and thwarting bad information in its tracks.
Well, and I hear what you're saying, Zig, because let's take Sidney Powell at her word for a second.
I would also say there's a perverse incentive for normalcy bias, too, because we have the whole idea of too big to fail in this country. There's a perverse incentive to let little things slide constantly because of our institutions being so large. And the idea that if people lost faith in some of those institutions, society would fall. So because we've allowed institutions to grow so large that our society could fall apart if they are not believed in, there's a perverse incentive for normalcy bias to say everything's okay all the time, even though most people know things are not okay. So, I mean, I agree with you, Zig, but there's like competing perverse incentives to either be loud and crazy or to be a quiet, compliant church mouse.
What the media does is they say there's election. They stoke election fraud claims. Okay, they set the stage for this. Oh, Trump's not going to concede. Biden's not going to concede. They stoke all those claims. Okay, and then when the time comes, then they have some lunatic comment on it, and it's all a cycle to drive ratings, to continuously drive ratings to bad information that really doesn't improve many people's lives. And I think more people ought to tune into shows like ours because we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to create this perverse cycle of garbage information.
No, I completely agree with you, Zig. I mean, frankly, I truly, every now and then we have a few individuals that vehemently disagree with our worldview here, which is a difficult thing to do. I feel like we're fairly reasonable in the grand scheme of what's out there. But when those people come in and comment, I always appreciate what they do to hold us accountable, to keep us in check, to give us just a little bit of devil's advocates. I don't know, just to do something to have a dialogue with. I just don't think what Zig is saying is correct. I don't think there's another option out there right now to at least be that interactive with an audience and also have, I mean, we're not like, I don't think we're hosts here or anything, man. I don't think we're like true pundits. We're just people that just try and get it right and do it for a living. I think that's another thing that we have going for us is that the three of us right now, we do this for a living. We've committed our adult lives to being on the ground. I mean, the reason why Shine was gone portions of last week because he was literally in Georgia knocking doors. The reasons why I was gone at the beginning of the week because I was literally in Georgia knocking doors. Zig, next week after Thanksgiving, is on a 2-week endeavor to Atlanta to do the same thing. Like, we're doing this stuff. We're out there. I think it gives us a slightly different perspective. And pulling audience members in here as well, too, is one other thing. But Shine, play this clip real quick from Tucker Carlson, and it'll set up where we're going with Sidney Powell right now.
Well, last night, in a segment about voter fraud and investigations into it, we told you about Sidney Powell, the former federal prosecutor. and her claim that roughly 7 million votes were secretly changed on election night by rigged vote counting software. Well, in the last 24 hours since we did that, we've heard from a lot of people about that segment, including people in the White House and people close to the president. Like us, they have concluded that this election was not fair. Like us, they are willing to believe any explanation for what happened. Like us, they have not seen a single piece of evidence showing that software changed votes. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It might have happened. It means they haven't seen any evidence that it happened. And by they, we are including other members of Donald Trump's own legal team. They have not seen Powell's evidence either. No testimony from employees inside the software companies, no damning internal documents, no copies of the software itself. So that's where we are. Sidney Powell came on Fox this morning and suggested we may not have to wait much longer. I fully expect, she says, that we will be able to prove all of it in a court within the next 2 weeks. Well, as far as we're concerned, that is great news. If Sidney Powell can prove the technology companies switched millions of votes and stole a presidential election, she will have almost single-handedly uncovered the greatest crime in the history of this country, and no one will be more grateful for that than us.
All right, that last part of what Tucker just mentioned, I think goes a little bit to Zig's point. If what Sidney Powell is claiming is true, and just to give you a quick rundown as to what she is claiming now, I have this Newsmax clip pulled up. I have it time-stamped in the notes. We're going to go through a little bit of this if we have time, unless our commentary takes over, which is totally fine as well. Here's the bullet points of what she's claiming took place. Joe Biden, she says, Joe Biden votes were weighted, meaning counting more, were weighted at a 1.25 times more than President Donald Trump's votes being parsed at 3/4. So the idea is that a Joe Biden point, I don't even know how this works. I don't pretend to know how this works.
This is like that crazy mathematical analysis. It's
right.
Like, and I suck at math.
Me too, man. Whenever they throw out these statistical analysis and these anomalies, they might start flying around. I'll take the expert at their word, I guess, right? But I don't know. But she claims that there is a weight of 1.25 times more for a Joe Biden vote. So if you were to cast a vote for Joe Biden, it would be worth 1.25. If you were to cast a vote for Donald Trump, it'd be worth 0.75. She also says that algorithms that gave Democrats more than 35,000 extra votes. She was asked in this interview where, in across the United States, in just one state in particular. She says, well, in just Georgia, I know alone, it's at least 35,000. Most of her attention seems to be focused on the state of Georgia right now. She says in Georgia alone, it's at least 35,000 extra votes. And to my last count, I think Biden is only up by 12 and change. Call it 13,000. I think it's 12,800 something that Joe Biden's up. So 35,000 would clearly flip that state. Again, one more time, what Tucker Carlson said is true, and it's to Zig's point. If what this lady is claiming is true, it is, without question, one of the largest scandals in American, in political history, man. In American history, for sure. You're talking about someone outright stealing an election by manipulating software. She goes on to say, modifications made to voting machines after statutory cutoff dates for changes, that they actually modified the physical voting machines themselves to change dates or to cure ballots or something to this effect. She says that past election victories, including Hillary Clinton's primary victory over Senator Bernie Sanders, were being forced decided by these Dominion voting systems. We just talked about that a second ago. She says that an alleged, and here's the biggest one, and we may actually just have to pull this up just to get her word for it because it's so outrageous. If you want to pull that clip up, Shine, it's underneath where the Tucker Carlson was, Sidney Powell biblical lawsuit coming, she says. You pull that clip up, it's an embedded video. I hate the embedded videos, but it's at minute 10. Just go to minute 10 if you want to play this here. But her biggest claim is apparently that there's a pay-for-play scandal going on in Georgia with kickbacks to public officials, potentially wrapping up major members of the GOP, including the Secretary of State and the Republican Governor Kemp in Georgia. Now, these are outrageous claims on their face. Not to say they're not true. Again, Tucker Carlson hit it right there.
It worked.
And understand, here's the title of this program. Is there a path forward? A tale of two options. Is there a path forward? A tale of two options. These two options are not even necessarily Democrat and Republican. What I'm talking about, these tale of two options, might actually be some version of Trumpism and these establishment Republicans, because right now establishment Republicans are leaving this narrative in droves. The Trump team itself is seemingly leaving this narrative in droves. Play that clip real quick for minute 10 here, and then I'll prove this point here in a second. Go ahead, though, Sean.
Let me ask you about the state of Georgia. Obviously, yesterday, the governor there, he certified the election for Joe Biden. It's about 12,000 votes. And what you see, will Georgia switch?
Yeah, that's a total farce. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Just to clarify, you're saying that Governor Kemp, who's been a longtime ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit in the conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that, and it would warrant an investigation if anybody were actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about that alleged conspiracy? Is the governor's involvement?
I can't give you any more details on that now, but it would certainly warrant an investigation. If it had been reported to me as a law enforcement officer, I would be investigating it steadfastly.
You can pause that here, Sean. All right, now here.
Greg, can I this is the radio host coming out in me a little bit.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question because you have some insight. I'm trying to turn on my camera. Hold on one second. So, when someone is about to go into the court of law with something that would be like a dynamically huge claim, that there would be it would be taboo to even claim it. You know what I mean? Like, the election wasn't good in a state, that a governor took paybacks. I mean, that's a major claim.
Major, right?
Why would a lawyer not talk about evidence that they have on camera to a national news outlet? Would it be because I think there's some people out there, I mean, if you don't know anything about courtrooms and how all that goes down, some people might think, well, man, if she had the evidence, why doesn't she just say it? Maybe she's just stalling for Trump, or this is all BS. Are there any logistical reasons of the way you do a court case of why she would say something like, I can't say anymore?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, she may just not want to prejudice the narrative itself. Now, I don't think there's going to be a jury involved. Why would you not want to do that? Well, again, I think the idea might be because if you let on too much of what you have, the other side already knows what you have. The other legal team already knows what you have.
You don't want to let your other attorneys know what you got. But what would a judge think if you were putting out your case on television completely before you even filed in court? What would a judge think of that?
Again, that's what I'm saying is that the other legal team, because of rules of discovery, already knows exactly what she has. If she's going to submit it, they have to get it first. So they already know what's going on, but she may not want to start creating that narrative too much lest she get herself in some hole. But I think the practical reasons right now that she just hasn't fully developed this stuff is because the claims she's making are going to take weeks and weeks to fully develop and flesh out. She may just not even have some of this stuff put fully together. Not to say that she doesn't have it, but at least in citable format, she may not have it, because understand the bar of the burden that needs to be passed right here is just preponderance of the evidence. This is not a criminal case. So what she's going in there with is she just has to prove that it's more likely than not that some of this stuff happened, i.e., that it's a 51% likelihood that some of this stuff went on in order for her to win this case. I mean, that's literally what the preponderance of evidence standard would be.
Well, let me ask you a question to the one more, and I'll let you keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt. No. But I almost feel, and tell me if I'm wrong, okay, with your experience, I almost feel like if she completely laid out her case on national television to millions of people, a judge might be like, well, how do we find an impartial jury? You've already like thrown this out there. I don't know. I also feel like a judge could throw it out for her making a mockery of the court. It's like, you're not doing this in the courtroom, you're doing it out there, and it's a wild claim. I kind of remember, I know it was a criminal case, but like Roger Stone getting gag ordered because he was basically doing his defense on television. Which that's not how they want you to do things. It's seen as manipulating the jury, trying to manipulate the court, trying to bring an outside force and move the judge based on popular opinion. And judges are very... They don't like that. It's like, this is my courtroom, and you don't get to make a mockery of my court. That's why I feel like she's holding back, because I don't think a real judge, like an appellate court judge, would want their court to be seen as political, a circus, or anything like that. They want to be seen as a rock-hard institution that society can lean on. But,
right, man. No, I completely agree with that. And again, I don't think that they're going to have a jury in this, but what you said a second ago is completely accurate, and I think what might be happening as well. I don't think that a judge would appreciate her biasing the narrative either. If there's all kind of news outlets that are covering there that this is definitively true prior to courts even getting a chance to touch it. And in the background of all of this, the other story we got to get to at some point, either today or tomorrow or something, is that there was just a massive defeat in these Pennsylvania trial courts. Now, again, it was just the trial court level. It's going to go to appeals, and the Trump team did say that they appreciated an easy, quick defeat at the trial level in Pennsylvania because their grand intention is to push this as quickly as possible to the Supreme Court, right? So I think all this sets the backstage here. But really, Shine, what I think is actually going on, and some of this stuff here, look, if you could,
it's the same thing like whenever you hear someone say we can't comment because there's a current investigation on or something like that. It's because you don't want to mess things up.
But I also think, man, she's trying to ride the line, or at least someone is telling her to ride the line. As I'm saying this, Shine, go beneath there. So that Sidney Powell claim, there's a bunch of time mark stamps there. The thing you just opened up, right beneath that, it says apparently Sidney Powell is not a part of the Trump legal team. It's a Twitter link down there, and it's from Jenna Ellis. I don't know who Jenna Ellis is, but she gives a screenshot of the Trump-Pence campaign, and this is their statement. And I'm going to use this statement to indicate what I think is actually happening behind the scenes here. This statement here from Trump campaign statement on legal team says, quote, Sidney Powell is practicing law on her own. She is not a member of the Trump legal team. She is also not a lawyer for the president in his personal capacity. This is coming apparently from Rudy Giuliani, attorney for the president, Jenna Ellis, Trump campaign senior legal advisor and attorney for President Trump. So two of Trump's main attorneys there are basically saying, not even basically, just outright making it clear to everyone that Sidney Powell is on her own. Here's what I think is happening, Sean. I think to answer your question of why she's being a little bit reserved with some of these claims, even though she let out there that Georgia's the main state. And this statement came down today, to which Sidney Powell responded in kind when Trump's legal team came out and said she's not a part of Trump's team. She's doing it on her own. Her response directly underneath that, Sean, in the show notes is, I agree. I agree with the statement today. I will represent hashtag we the people and seek the truth. I intend to expose all the fraud and let the chips fall where they may. We will not allow the foundations of this great republic to be destroyed by abject fraud. Here's what I think is really going on, man. Several of these Republican senators are outright claiming now, Sidney, what you're doing in Georgia is going to screw this race for Purdue. Do you want us to keep Kelly? Do you want us to have a majority in the Senate? Because God forbid we lose. I mean, look, if we lose Trump, that's one thing, but God forbid we lose the Senate as well. And you're messing around with this state. And if you start messing around with the state, we already think we're going to have minimal turnout, or what they're saying. They think we're already going to have minimal turnout. So the idea is that several thousand, if not 10,000 votes could make or break both of these seats in the Senate. And the more you mess around, the easier it's going to be to make a claim that these Democrats are going to win and that you're now a conspiracy theorist. So don't mark your conspiracy theories on our state of Georgia.
Well, I mean, what do they know, man? I've been out knocking the doors. I'm telling you right now, people are going to go out and vote. Everybody knows that there's a Senate runoff in Georgia. I can tell you, I've knocked on hundreds of doors already in Georgia. Everyone knows. Everyone's going. Everyone's going. And they're telling their friends and all this stuff. I mean, when you just did there, I'm not part of the Trump campaign, I'll represent we the people. All I heard was she's using her own money.
Yeah. Okay.
And that like she's not getting paid by the Trump campaign in order to produce a narrative for them. She obviously believes in this because she's putting her own blood and treasure on the line. She's putting her own reputation on the line. She's not doing it in the name of someone else. To me, that only adds validity, you know, to the situation. If you're working for the Trump campaign, it could be like a coordinate. There's people out there think Trump's just stalling. Mm-hmm. That's a narrative out there. And what better to stall than to like actually attack the voting counting and saying this could be illegitimate and holding up the count. There's people saying Trump's stalling so that Republican legislatures can pick the electors and things like that. Yep. So like if she was working for the Trump campaign, it would be a very valid theory to say these claims are crazy and they're because they want the process, the certification process, to be caught up in court or just to be cast doubt enough in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, and yes, Georgia, where the state legislature steps in and says, okay, we can't believe this result, so we're going to send our own electors. But she's working for herself, paying for it herself. I mean, maybe someone else is paying for it, but the Trump campaign's not paying for it.
It's not the Trump campaign, right? Yeah. Exactly.
And I don't know. To me, that adds more validity to it.
I mean, she did.
Not validity, but more validity to it, I guess, what I'm saying. At least to her intention, right? Not to her claims, but to her intention. Which, in this day and age, that's all we do, is try to guess people's intentions as opposed to listening to what they actually say. Right. Isn't that weird?
And see, now you're starting to understand a little bit why the title of the program today is there a path forward, a tale of two options? Again, these two options may not even be Democrat-Republican options. These two options may be, I don't know, Trump loyalist and something of what the new version of the Republican Party is going to look like.
What's really going on with the election is that folks are trying to cut their losses and really help either down ballot candidates or Georgia candidates win the Senate. It's to keep people mobilized. I personally don't think that there is any credibility to this, but I guess I see the political value, which I don't really agree with the means of doing things like that. I don't think that if you ran a good campaign, you should have to do that. But in Pennsylvania, for example, one of the reasons why that's in court is because there is a state Senate candidate, Nicole Ziccarelli, I believe, who has the results stand out. She is exactly tied with a Democrat incumbent. And so if some of these other votes can be certified as invalid, she might stand a better chance of winning. That's included in this calculation, at least as I understand.
No, I completely understand that, man. And I think the main point that I'm trying to prove today, in some small part, is this idea of as we're talking about the path forward and there being two primary options. You know, Eric just said in Facebook a second ago, either way, I've always felt that two wings, one bird theory is the most likely truth. Politics is the entertainment division of the military industrial complex. Eric makes this point that, hey, man, well, we're really talking about the exact same result here, aren't we? I mean, at some point, we're talking about the two wings of one bird. The Democrat-Republican, it's unlikely there's going to be a difference in outcome, at least at the end of a 4-year term. The end of the Bush administration didn't look that much different from the end of the Clinton administration, at least not in marked notable things that you would take in notice of. Now, whether you agree with that or not it's not necessarily important. It's just a theory that's out there. And one of the theories that's out there that I'm trying to draw to right now is this idea that John Oliver in 2019, he said, we have major problems with this aspect of voter integrity. We had it in 2019. We obviously had it. The whole thing started in 2000 with the hanging Chad situation. I'm hoping to book in this show.
And after 2000, dude, like CBS and 60 Minutes did the same kind of reports on those voting machines as John Oliver did. In 2001, prior to 9/11, they were talking about these voting machines being able to weight ballots, just like Sidney Powell was talking about 20 years ago. I mean, I remember being a kid. I was homeschooled at the time, so I could just watch news like crazy in 2001. And like they talked about these machines being able to weight ballots, just like she said. Now, if I could find that, I would. But that was pre-YouTube, so I doubt I'll be able to find it. But these have been issues for a long time, and I hope that what we get out of this is an electorate that cares more about the process. With their state legislatures and things like that demand transparency, and I don't know, generally just being more engaged so that there's a feeling of duty from these state legislatures to provide a result that people believe in. And I don't know what that looks like because I don't know what makes people believe on a mass scale. But I hope that the bias is there to make that happen in the future.
Also, real quick, Grant, when we talk about a path forward, one thing then is probably prudent to do is to not follow the president's example in running state races or congressional races. Folks who lean a little bit more left than what I do, they tried to do that with the candidates and create a bunch of candidates in the image of Barack Obama. And guess what? That hasn't succeeded. So I don't think that would succeed here. And I think to some degree, it's good to try and not replicate on a micro level what the current president is.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, like I know we got to end, Grant, but like, let me say this too. Not on a personality level. I mean, everyone who tries to like copy Donald Trump's personality is lame because when you try to copy other people's personality, that's lame. No matter who you're copying, you need to be yourself. But a tactic I think that he used that I think a lot of people could use is find out what the electorate. I mean, this goes all the way down to dog catcher. Find out what people want. Even if it's heterodox. And if you're okay with those things, if you feel like those things are things you want when you're running, this would be someone running for an election, then push those things. Regardless of what the newspaper or the local university or the local mayor or governor would think, represent your people. And I think that's something, a lesson that everyone could take. From President Trump.
Yeah.
It was totally in the political sphere, not okay to talk about limiting immigration. Now, I'm not talking about that policy on its merits. What I'm talking about is its popularity amongst the electorate and its unpopularity among the political elites of the time in 2016. Because the Republican Party was not going to talk about immigration at all, and they hated that he talked about it. But it ended up being like, besides Make America Great Again, what was the other slogan? Build that wall. And it wasn't because of the marketing. It's because people were already into it. So, like, regardless of what the political establishment thinks, be heterodox if you have to. Represent your people, the people you want to represent. And I think that's something that people can copy and will work. And will actually probably make the system better, generally speaking.
Hey, by the way, on the way out here, two things. Knox County Health Board meeting tonight at 5 p.m. That is 5 p.m. Eastern time out there. Links in the show notes of the updates from that. Check out Representative Zachary's link, in particular his Facebook link. He's the one that goes over what he expects to be proposed there tonight and probably pass. There's no passing. They just do the edicts as the way we want them to do. That's how we're doing now, I guess. So check that out. And also, real news, fake news for today. That is a real headline. Biden won, but the election is still not over. Here are the key dates to watch. It's a CNN headline. On the way out here, y'all, honestly, every single day, what we're preaching this show, the reason why we try and have this open community where we can have dialogue and exchange of ideas and debate and disagreement with each other, because that's how you grow as a human being. Okay, keep that in mind, especially during times like this where it's vitally important. Understand that, man, friends, family, that's what's important. Objective truth and reality will return in spite of the craziness going on right now. I promise you that. Stick with it. My name is Mr. Henry, David Sean Thompson, Zig, signing off this morning. Love y'all. Peace.